Well, hello. Thanks for having me. And Joe Everhart, thanks for not introducing me as not your first choice. I know most of you are interested in hearing from Secretary of the Air Force Heather Wilson. She was looking forward to being here in Orlando, but everyone has a boss. And she was revectored on short notice to travel with the Vice President to Colorado and North Dakota today, whereas he is getting a closer look at our space mission and our nuclear enterprise. She does look forward to visiting with all of you in the future. General Everhart, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate your leadership across the air mobility enterprise. I also want to recognize our industry and community partners who are here with us tonight. Our Total Force leadership and joint international teammates, the Airlift Tanker Association for putting this on, and in particular, Joan McNabb. Your contributions to the mobility world over the past 4 decades, including your leadership legacy with Air Mobility Command and U.S. Transportation Command, are benefiting airmen in our joint force around the globe to today. Secretary Wilson did ask me to convey one message in particular, and that is her deep thanks. She appreciates each of you, our mobility airmen across the total force, and our commercial, industry, international, and joint partners. She values everything you bring to today's joint fight, and she recognizes all that you are doing by preparing for tomorrow's challenges. I know she would also want me to call out our crucial partners in the Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve. They play such a large role in our Air Force's mobility capability. Thank you for your huge contributions. You are all the backbone of the American way of war. For decades, the United States has relied on the global strategic and theater mobility that you provide. You give our nation one of its greatest asymmetric advantages, the strategic ability to quickly project power anywhere across the face of the planet. Just as this year's conference theme of Ever Present infers, the Airlift Tanker team bridges the tyranny of distance to support joint and coalition forces around the clock and across the globe. You manage to shrink oceans and close the gap of those difficult last tactical miles. You're often the first in and the last out. And you make it look seamless and easy, despite the tremendous work that we all know happens on the scene and behind the scenes. It's remarkable what mobility airmen can accomplish. I am immensely proud of the work you do to deliver unfaltering airlift, air refueling, in-flight medical care, and air mobility support when and where needed, in addition to providing capabilities that support our nuclear enterprise. It's not a stretch to say, as goes the success of the mobility missions, so goes the success in achieving our national security objectives. We have seen your daily impact across the globe in just the past few weeks. Mobility airmen are in 23 countries at 77 locations and operating a global system of airfields and enabling access for allies and joint partners. You offload fuel and equipment to our joint teammates and allied nations to enable the campaign to defeat ISIS. You delivered relief to hurricane-battered areas in Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, back to back to back. I visited here in Florida a few weeks ago with our Vice Chief of Staff, General Sebby Wilson. We heard from our remarkable airmen how Air Force C-5s arrived within a couple hours after the storms passed and the airfields reopened, filled with rescue equipment and supplies to assist in our neighbors' recovery. And you did it all with the good nature and professionalism that the nation has come to expect from its airmen. At the same time, on the other side of the world, mobility airmen delivered medical and humanitarian aid supplies to the Somalian people following the terrorist attack in Mogadishu. Another example of gray-tailed diplomacy with mission values and American spirit that extends far beyond the traditional military effects. You transformed the Air Mobility Rodeo competition into a large-scale multinational training exercise. Mobility Guardian 17 tested rapid global mobility in contested environments and strengthened relationships and interoperability with our joint international partners, all absolutely essential to readiness and sustainment in our coalition campaigns. Last week, you completed renovation on the C-130 fuselage trainer, making it fully certifiable for aeromedical evacuation airmen to accomplish their standardized training, and allowing the command to redirect precious flying hours to other units and missions. And just a few days ago, a C-17 carrying researchers and cargo landed on the southernmost point of the Earth's surface for the Operation Deep Freeze joint mission in Antarctica. Meanwhile, KC-135s were hard at work refueling 6 of our latest fifth-generation fighters over the Pacific Northwest. The F-35 brings an entirely new level of lethality to our force, but the F-35, or any combat aircraft for that matter, can't go far or complete most missions without regular refueling top-offs. I can personally attest to this, having benefited from the business end of tankers many times in a thirsty F-15. Last year marked the 60th birthday of the KC-135, while the 135 and its younger big brother, the KC-10, have been mobility workhorses. Bringing the KC-46A online next spring is a central step in modernizing our tanker fleet and allowing us to reimagine the refueling mission in new and different ways. What's most impressive is all this just scratches the surface over a recent snapshot in time of what mobility airmen accomplish, day in and day out. You consider it simply part of what you do, but you are sustaining an incredibly high operations tempo and have done so for a very long time. We also know you are meeting the high demands, supporting every combatant commander every day with scalable options, all with a progressively smaller force and older fleet. Mobility capabilities are an enduring strategic investment. We can never take for granted our ability to deliver global reach and power anywhere at any time. Nor can we lose sight that our competitors are quickly gaining ground and capabilities designed to contest our freedom to maneuver and operate our forces. To this end, the Secretary of Defense has asked us to increase the Air Force's lethality and make it more ready for what's ahead. This lethality is mostly the means to an end, but it is a prerequisite for the strategic effects and competitive advantages that support the goals of U.S. national security objectives. Fundamentally, becoming more lethal means improving our readiness, growing our capacity, and leaping ahead in our capabilities. But also, as Secretary Mattis is known to say, the most important 6 inches on the battlefield is between your ears. So I'd like to spend a few minutes on 3 areas: increasing our capability, growing our capacity, and thinking forward to the future. It's important to first recognize these things are interrelated. Our global knowledge, technologies, and resources have become more connected and coupled. Greater connection creates greater complexity. We can't address one part of the interconnected problem at a time and expect to get the right answer. And we can't change one segment without changing all the others. On the capability side, in some areas we've been operating with our grandfather's platforms, organizational structures, and processes designed for the industrial age, where the prevailing wisdom was calibrated to a different strategic landscape. The basic mission sets of our Air Force have not changed, but the ways that we can perform them and the ways they can be challenged have seen significant shifts. We are seeing this play out in Syrian airspace. Unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, where we've owned the airspace, Syria involves multiple players in the air, manned and unmanned, and our crews are constantly alert to the fact that they are often flying in areas protected by sophisticated Russian and Syrian air defenses. At the same time, the ways in which we develop and acquire our capabilities through rigid, bureaucratic, and unimaginative linear processes have had us going in the wrong direction. So we're looking at what we can do to get more streamlined and agile in how we do business. A strength of the U.S. military, coupled with our industrial partners, is our ability to put together different capabilities and come up with synergies that add up to more than 2 + 2. We have a responsibility to continue to shed fixed and dated paradigms and a mandate to identify, adapt, and field technologies at a much faster pace than has been our recent history. the range of global threats we face calls for a far more innovative, dynamic, and cost-effective Department of Defense, and speed is one of the most important attributes of a system designed to win. We're taking every opportunity to tailor regulatory requirements and push procurement authorities to lower levels of command. This will help deliver warfighting capability in the shortest practical time and reduce or eliminate self-imposed barriers that advantage our adversaries. On the capacity side, the demand-resource mismatch we face today is unsustainable. As Secretary Wilson has said many times, our Air Force is simply too small for the missions the nation demands of us. You have also heard much about our pilot shortfall. Our fighter pilots are the most acutely affected, and while our mobility pilots have been at healthier levels, we know the retention pressures will continue as the airlines increase their hiring. And General Goldfein and his team, along with all of us, are working through all the possibilities for the best way forward. This also applies to our maintenance professionals. And although we have made good progress in rebuilding our maintainer end strength, it will take time to rebuild the experience levels to where we need them to be. More broadly, capacity includes more aircraft with improved availability rates and sufficient global infrastructure and equipment to meet joint warfighter requirements. Said another way, as the Department of Defense increases its lethality and capacity, for example, if the Army grows, the Air Force must also grow to be able to support them. To fully support the joint warfighter, our fighters, bombers, mobility aircraft, ISR platforms, command and control, electronic warfare capabilities, and joint terminal air controllers, or JTACs, must all be recapitalized, improved, and increased in quantity. In all these areas, we must be faster in identifying the problems we need to solve and more straightforward about articulating our true requirements for executing the National Defense Strategy. And that includes to the Department of Defense, to the White House, and to the Congress. We must get faster in developing counter options, faster at achieving a common operating picture of the battle space, networking it all together, and achieving overwhelming decision speed. Faster and more agile at turning ideas into cost-effective solutions delivered to the warfighter. We must deliver 80% solutions early, rather than exquisite answers that are late and therefore irrelevant. And ultimately become faster at creating multiple dilemmas for our adversaries from every domain simultaneously. We cannot fully conceptualize or effectively operate in the future operational environment by using the thinking and culture of yesterday. In some cases, we'll need to strike out for the future without exactly knowing our destination or exactly how we'll get there. And that's actually the smartest move in a complex world, where the best answers are often discovered rather than planned, discovered and shaped by the talented people that are present here tonight. As we think about the future, I submit the point may be to not design solutions to specific problems, but rather to design revolutionary concepts and structures that can successfully respond to a range of challenges and quickly adapt as threats continue to evolve. That being said, while in-flight fueling was a game changer, I'll buy dinner for the first person to bring me a viable concept for in-flight rearming. We need multi-domain command and control mechanisms so we can orient quickly and accurately on emerging challenges, match the appropriate tools to problem sets, and enable decisions at the speed of relevance, so that we're driving our adversary to play the competitive game of our choosing, where we excel, instead of the game they may prefer. So I'll close on this. Our ability to adapt and stay ahead of potential adversaries is the greatest challenge we face. But I'm confident in our future because mobility history is rich in examples of airmen and industry working together to conquer overwhelming obstacles, from the question mark to flying the hump, to the Berlin Airlift, to Desert Storm, to all the operations across the world today. And today's mobility airmen are both forged by the lessons of history and are more combat experienced and integrated with our joint and coalition partners than ever before. I'm also confident about maintaining our competitive advantage because our partners in industry, many of whom are represented here tonight, I think it's fair to say that only America has such a deep bench of creative, talented professionals who deliver world-class warfighting solutions to our force. We need your continued imagination, innovation, and ingenuity. Things mobility airmen and industry are known for. And I hope you'll take advantages of the opportunities at this conference over the next few days. The agenda is both practical and ambitious. And I encourage you to leverage the exhibit hall and the hallways to exchange ideas. It's going to take our combined efforts and partnerships to build a more lethal force with the inherent flexibility and responsiveness our nation needs to maintain our competitive advantage. Thank you once again to the Airlift Tanker Association, Joe McNabb, General Everhart, for hosting this symposium. I appreciate the tremendous support that you offer to our airmen and our families. And thank you to all of you for being here and for what you do. As we speak, the Air Force's mobility team is providing the air bridge across the globe with precision and reliability that is the envy of the world. Thank you for your leadership and commitment, so that when this conference is held 10, 20, or 30 years from now, that will always be the case. Thank you very much. Take a question?
Thank you, sir.
Hi. Thank you very much.
You betcha.
Yeah.
I'll help you here with, you want to take a few questions and answers?
Sure.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary has saved a little time for us to ask questions. There are mic proffers that are out in the audience. So if you would raise your hand, get their attention, and when you ask the question, please stand. Just state your name and your unit, and your question, please. Right here in the front, on the left, please. And could we bring the house lights up just a touch so I can see a little bit better?
Undersecretary of Pleasure, Melinda Taranjo, Warrior Sports Solutions. This may only get me an appetizer, but instead of in-flight rearming, how about use of non-kinetics?
I'm sorry, you're echoing.
Use of non-kinetics.
Use of non-kinetics. Okay, well, that's a pretty broad topic. Well, non-kinetics, I mean, that could fall into many different categories. The first that comes to mind would be cyber and cyber warfare. You know, one of the things that we're doing is supporting the creation of the separation of the U.S. Cyber Command. The Air Force is actually contributing 39 cyber mission teams to that effort. And, you know, we're training up those folks. And one of the things that we're looking at doing in order to make us more efficient is we have a lot of our cyber folks, and if there's any cyber folks in here, you know that, you know, it kind of went from computer folks, and then everybody was a cyber person. And we're trying to narrow that down a little bit. So we're taking a look at our business processes. And for commercial information technology, or IT, what we're thinking is that we need to transition to more of treating that as a service and getting into the clouds and that sort of thing. And then take all the people that we have working those kind of issues on bases, you know, whether they're taking care of inside plant or outside plant cabling and all that sort of stuff, and sort of pass that off onto somebody who does that for a living that can do it much cheaper and more efficiently than us. And then we can take those warriors and make them true offensive and defensive cyber people so that they concentrate on those particular skills. Does that answer your question? That was a pretty broad question, non-kinetics. We could do it by smiling and shaking hands too. That's non-kinetics, right?